People often think that time series visualizations can only be a line chart. In this video, I'm going to show you 15 different options for time series visualizations that you can complete in Tableau. Look in the video description for the time codes for each visualization, and also stick around till the end to see one of the visualizations that I think is the most powerful. The first visualization we're going to be talking about is the percent of total bar chart. The pros of this visualization are you can easily see the composition of the numbers for a specified time period. The downside of this visualization is it's hard to tell the difference in the change of individual color segments. For instance, as you can see, let's dive into building this visualization. Just as a reminder, you can go down in the description of the video, get the link out to the dashboard to go download it so you can follow along more easily. The first thing we're going to do is bring in our order date. It's going to start you out on year. I'm going to switch that to month by right-clicking, going down here, selecting month. That's going to switch order date to continuous. I'm going to switch that back to discrete. It just makes things a little bit easier to read. Additionally, because we have so much data and we have to scroll, I'm just going to bring order date out to the filter pane. I'm just going to bring in 2 years of data. Next step is I'm going to bring in sales data and drag that onto rows. Now you can see we have sales across time. The next piece we need to do is separate the sales out by category. So I'll drag category over to color on the marks card. And now we have a stacked bar chart with the actual number. The last thing that we need to do is to turn the stacked bar chart into a 100% bar chart. We're going to right-click sales, go to the quick table calculation, and switch it to percent of total. Now, as you can see right now on mine, it's not 100% stacked. So what we need to do is change the table calculation. So we're going to right-click on sales again, hit edit table calculation. Now you can see it's calculating across. We're going to switch this to table down. The bars have now updated to show the 100% stacked for each month. The next visualization that we're going to be going over is the stacked area chart. The advantage of the stacked area chart is you can see the composition across the categories over time. Unlike the percent of total bar chart, which gives you the 100% stacked, it shows you the size through time. So you could now see that, oh, January was a lot lower in 2016 when you compare January in 2018 because it gives you the actual number and not a percent of total. To build our stacked area chart, I first added the year order date to just limit down our data a little bit. Now we are going to drag order date out to columns. This gives us our year of our order date on there, but we're going to switch that to month. That's going to switch this to continuous months for our time series. Now what we need to do is add sales to our rows. If I search for sales, drag that out to row. Now we have a area chart. So now I'm going to add category to color on the marks card. And there we go. That's the stacked area chart. The next visualization is the percent of total area chart. This blends the percent of total bar chart with the stacked area chart. So just like the other two, it has those advantages. It also has those disadvantages. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to drag order date over to columns. We're going to switch this to a month value. Then we're going to drag sales out here. Sales. We get the area chart again. We're going to drag category onto color. Then here we are at our total area chart. The only thing that we need to change is now we need to accumulate the sales or do the percent of the sales per month. So we're going to do a quick table calculation by right-clicking sales, going down to percent of total. As you can see, we had the same problem as we had on the bar, but we will just edit the calculation to calculate down. And there you go. We have our percent of total area chart. The next visualization is a bullet chart. Bullet charts are really effective at making comparisons. As you can see here with this bullet chart, we have the bar which represents the current year and the Gantt line that represents the previous year. And then we're using coloring to say, okay, are we exceeding or not? To get started, we'll want to bring order date into columns. We'll want to switch that to month. Here we actually don't want to include the year. So we'll want to use this month when we change that. The next piece is we will want our calculations on the current versus the previous year. So in this workbook, it's latest year and previous year. We will drag out latest year. So that gives us our bars of our latest year. We will drag out previous year also on the page. So as you can see, we have two bar charts, one for the current year, one for the previous year. In the previous year, we're going to switch it from a bar to a Gantt. And then we're going to right click the axis down here, click dual axis, and then we're going to right click the axis again and synchronize them. What we're going to do with our bar coloring is we are going to remove measure names here, and then we are going to use a calculation called sales increase. Add that to color, and now we have our color bars. That's how you build that bullet chart with the coloring. The next visualization we're going to talk about is the bar and line. This is just another iteration of something similar to a bullet chart in that it allows you to compare two different things. So maybe it's previous versus current year. Maybe it's sales versus quantity. Here you can see that we have the profit overlaid with the sales. But it allows you to see, is there a trend? Our profit's going up, but we're also increasing our sales. So that means we're in a good state. We'll start this bar and line with adding order date in up here. We're going to do monthly, so I'll switch that to month. I also switched it to discrete by right-clicking that after I selected month down here, clicking discrete. We'll put sales onto rows. As you can see, we have line currently. What we want is a bar for that. Now we have our sales. And then what we're going to do is overlay this with our profit. We will find the profit calculation, drag that out right here. We will right click the axis for profit, click dual axis, and then we are going to want to change our profit marks card to a line. And now you have that overlaying line on top of it. So you have your sales bar with an overlaying line of profit. You don't want to synchronize because obviously if you synchronize here, your profit's going to be much smaller than sales. So you're going to want to leave those unsynchronized. Continuing on in the vein of comparison type visualizations will be the bar on bar. So it's very similar to the bullet chart and the bar and line. You can comparing two different variables. We're going to start with order dates. And we're going to drag that onto columns. We're going to select month again, except for this time we want this month because we don't want to include year because we're going to be doing a year over year comparison. The next piece is we are going to drag measure values out to rows. And as you can see, it already pre-filled measure values with previous and latest year, which is what I want. If that doesn't happen for you, just select edit filter and select which ones you would like to put onto the page. Additionally, we're going to take measured names and we're going to drag it out onto color. And then we're going to take measured names and drag it out onto size. So that will create the visualization that we're looking for. This next row of visualizations is going to be a little more specialized and you will probably use a little bit less. The first of which is the variance to average. What variance to average is going to tell you is how different you are from an average month. This is helpful to identify what are really bad months or what are really good months versus what's just in that middle territory of what you would expect to happen. This can help you identify a really positive campaign or a really negative campaign when it comes to sales. All right, to get started, we're going to take our order date and put it on the page. We're going to drag it over to columns. Then we're going to select month. We're going to leave it as a continuous variable. We are then going to drag out a calculation that I already made called sales versus average. If we drag that out to rows, we can see that this gives us our differential. Now, if we want to add the coloring that we had, we can just drag that over to color now. You can change the shading however you would like. For what I'm doing here, I am going to leave it at orange versus blue, switch it to 3 steps, and then apply it. So what this helps you do is really identify, okay, the big variances here. Now, if it's dark blue, it's really good. If it's dark orange, it's really bad. And then gray is kind of like within a middle range. So that's one way that I like to just use coloring to help make this chart a little more powerful. The next visualization is the difference from previous. So unlike the variance to the average, we are just comparing the value to the previous month instead of comparing the value to the overall average. To get this visualization started, I had just added a order date filter to limit down the data to a couple years. We're going to drag order date over to columns. We're going to right click it. We are going to select month down here. That gives us our month and year. And then I'm going to right click it again and switch it to discrete. The next thing we're going to do is add sales to rows. So we'll find our sales, add it to rows. So now that we have our bar chart of sales, we want to find the difference from month over month. So we're going to right click our sales. So we're going to do quick table calculation, and then we're going to do difference. Add sales to the color, our calculation. So if you hold control, drag that over to color. I like to use stepped color down to 3 in situations like this. Apply it. And what that'll do is really show you the outlier months. Our next visualization is the calendar heat map. Again, this is a very specific visualization that you might want to use if you have a business that has a lot of seasonality, or you maybe need to know, I'm trying to schedule for things. Are my weekends more busy? Is it a specific weekday? Is it beginning or end of the month? That's where the calendar heat map can help you. We're going to get started by limiting down the data. So I selected just a single month, December of 2017. Then I'm going to drag order date out to columns. I'm going to right click that. I'm going to select more up here. Then I'm going to select weekday. So that gives us our weekdays across the top. Then I'm going to drag order date over to rows, and I'm going to select month. I'm going to switch, right click that again, select discrete. And then I am going to, again, drag order date past that, and I'm going to select week. So if we go here, week. As you can see, this gives us the frame of our calendar. Right click on the pill, unselect show header, right click on the other row pill, unclick show header, and now we have our calendar that we were trying to build. The next step is adding our sales onto the page. The next step after we build our calendar frame is to change our mark from automatic to square. Then we will drag our sales over to color. And as you can see, we kind of have the start of what we're looking for here. That gives us our heat map by day. Then we're going to want to add our order date in to label this. So we have our dates. So we drag order date to label. We'll want to right click that. We want the day. We'll just select day here. So now we have the date there. Expand it here, you can see that that gives us our calendar heat map onto the Sparkline row of our 15 visualizations here. These are all going to have the same advantage, which is usually it's added just as extra context to show something through time, usually added to a KPI box or as a subsection. Each of these is basically going to be built the same way, just how it's displayed is going to be different, whether that's a bar, a line, or an area chart. All right, to get started with our Spark bars, the first thing we're going to do is bring in our dates. So I'm just going to bring in month on this one. I'll switch that to discrete. I limited it down to a few subcategories just to make it a little bit cleaner. We are then going to add a subcategory to our rows to give us our breakouts. And then we're going to be adding sales also in rows to give us our bars. And it's as easy as that. There is a Spark bar. Now to move on to a Spark line, I'm going to leave the same subcategories, the month breakouts. Feel free to change those as you would like. But all we have to do to make this a line is select our marks, switch that to a line, and now bam, you have a Spark line. Now that we have our Spark line, if we want to make that an area, again, go to Sparks, switch from Align to Area. So we just covered all three of those Spark. We're down to our last three visualizations. The first of these three visualizations is the butterfly chart. The benefit of a butterfly chart is it gives you a comparison. The downside is that comparison isn't going to be as clear as something like a bullet chart. The first thing we'll want to do for our butterfly chart is to drag order date out onto rows. This is a little bit different than the other ones because we're going to want it to be vertical orientation rather than a horizontal orientation. We will right click on that order date that we just dropped on there, select month. Now we have a discrete month. As you can see, here's all of our months for the year. I'm going to make this a year over year. So we are going to go to measure names, measure values, add that to columns. Now we have our measure values. So we have the latest year and we have, should be the previous year and the latest year are on our measure values down here on the marks card. So as you can see, we don't have a butterfly chart right now. So how do we fix that? So what we're going to do is we're going to go into previous year by double clicking it, and we are going to negate that by putting in the minus sign. We'll hit enter, and then now we have our butterfly chart. So to add in our coloring, we are just going to add measure names to color by dragging it on color, and now we have our butterfly chart between our current and previous year. Now let's talk about the bump chart. The bump chart is going to be helpful when you just care about the rank of something. You don't necessarily care about the total value. So for instance, if I don't care that sales were $100,000 for couches and $70,000 for chairs, I just want to know that couches is our best seller. That's where a bump chart is going to be helpful. The first thing I did on this chart was just to add subcategory to filters, limit it down to just 4 subcategories just to make this a little bit easier to see. We are going to add order date to our columns. We want to look at that across months, so we'll right click that, select month. I'm going to switch this to discrete by right clicking again. Then we are going to select our sales, drag that over to rows. We want to break those out by subcategory. So we will drag subcategory to color. You can control drag that filter if you did that. Now we have our color. But to make our bump chart, we need to rank them. So we have the raw sales on the page, but now we want to create our ranks. To do that, we're just going to right click on sales up here on rows, go to quick table calc, select rank. It's calculating across time, so we obviously want to adjust that. Right click on sales again, edit our table calculation. We are going to switch this to specific dimensions, select subcategory, unselect month, and then we are going to want to flip this from descending to ascending, so our highest value is at the top. Once we do that, we now have our bump chart. Now we're down to our final visualization, which is the enclosed dot plot. This visualization is one of my favorites. It gives you a nice way to compare things, year over year, also across categories, and it really compacts that data down and makes it easy to access. First thing that I did was add measure names and subcategory to filter. I limited down our subcategories, also selected the 2 measures that we actually need in measure names. We are going to add measure values to our columns to start. We're also going to add measure values again. Now we have 2 measure value pills out there. We are going to right click the axis on the second one, create a dual axis, and then we are also going to right click it again and synchronize that. The next piece that we're going to do is add subcategory to rows. So now we have our subcategories across rows here. The first thing we have here is our first measure value pill. That's set to automatic. We're going to switch that to circle. I know it's already a circle, but we just want to make sure it selects the right thing. The second measure value pill, we are going to change that from automatic to line. Now we kind of have what we're looking for, but we're not quite there yet. So to get there, we're going to drag measure names onto path on the line, and then we're going to go to the other marks card, and we're going to draw measure names onto color. We're also going to adjust the size of our first one. So we're going to make these much smaller. Let's make it a little bit more small. And then as you can see, the previous year value is, not really showing up here. So we adjust that a little bit more by changing the measure value color to just a lighter color on the line, just to make it a little bit easier to see. Maybe it's, darken this up, make it a different color, just so it's clear